bond with a student in a 2-day hybrid model. That's my take on technology. Everybody has different forms and everybody has different ways of looking at it. We talked to our pediatrician this week. She is a member of our family pretty much because we ask her lots of questions. She's very knowledgeable. She shared this with us. There was a study in New York City, 1,000 COVID tests, 0.68 positive within the schools. The community was 9.8. Basically saying that schools do not drive community spread. We have protocols in place, we have distancing, we have masks, we have sanitizing. One of my very closest friends is a janitor at Paul Knox. He's worn out. He's working like crazy. He's getting those kids and those areas that those kids are in sanitized and ready. We're going to have exposure to the virus in all places. School.
Time's up, Ms. Long.
Time's up. Can I close with one statement, please? I just ask that as we make our decisions tonight, not really me, but you guys make your decisions tonight, let's go back to the beginning statement of we're not given a spirit of fear. We're given a spirit to be strong and courageous and put our students that we're in charge of in this county first. They deserve that. That's what we're here to do. We're in the kid business. We're in the business of looking out for children and caring for their needs. So that's my point tonight, is to put that first before any vote is made. And again, Aiken County, I feel like can do better, can go to 5 days, face-to-face instruction. And again, I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your comment.
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Long, Dr. Long, did you want to leave?
No.
I think you signed up. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here. Sherry Watkins.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Sherry Watkins. Whoops. I'm an English 2 Honors AP Seminar and AP Research teacher at Aiken Scholars Academy. I'm in my 2nd year teaching here in the district and my 3rd year working for the district. My big picture results for last year are these. In my 1st year of teaching any AP course, 88% of my freshman AP seminar students received qualifying scores of 3, 4, or 5, and 100% turned in all of their required assignments to the College Board. I could not begin to estimate the number of hours I spent from March to May on the phone and on Zoom with students and their parents, coaching, conferencing, and teaching while we were all virtual. But I can tell you that my seminar students had the highest percentage of qualifying rates for any teacher in the school, and those scores were 8% higher than the national average, while my students were 2 school grades younger than most students who take the course. Their end-of-course exams and growth rates were also stellar, although I do not recall the numbers. My principal was happy, and she told me I should be proud. Now, before I tell you what teaching has been like this year for me in Aiken County, I want to tell you a few big things I had to give up this year so that I could follow the recommendations of public health officials at the CDC and DHEC. I did not spend my mother's 70th birthday with her in Nevada in July. I missed a professional development trip to the Peruvian Amazon, which was also slated for July, and that was a dream for me. And I spent Christmas and New Year's Eve home alone instead of in Nevada with my brother, my mother, and a multitude of friends. So while it is obvious that many citizens in South Carolina and Aiken County have chosen not to follow the public health guidelines and recommendations, those of us who had followed the science for the good of ourselves and others, we do not deserve to be put in danger by those who have chosen not to do so. And yet, here we are, looking at a second vote on full face-to-face instruction when the rate of COVID is now 5 to 6 times higher than what is recommended for safe return to school. It is both absurd and offensive. From the perspective of this teacher, here's what my year has been like. I have 5 points. I've had to use 4 different teaching or instructional models: hybrid, full face-to-face, virtual, and then hybrid while teaching virtual and in real life simultaneously. All of these require different approaches in order to be effective, thus they all require different types of planning. I have also been observed twice this year, will be observed twice, or 2 more times this year, have had to give and evaluate multiple slow assessments while, many students are on quarantine, and we are also currently in EOC exams. I will be judged, and my school will be judged by the results of these. Now, since a significant number of students are on quarantine at any given time, we have to help those students catch up individually. And since everyone works at their own speed and is missing different deadlines, it means we're constantly back and forth with grading that would normally be complete as you move through the various assessments in any given unit. Point 3, 1 month before an election, this board, y'all, had the nerve to send us back face to face for what were obviously political reasons and parent pressure. For those who are willing to endanger the lives and health of teachers to achieve political ends, I say, shame on you, and you deserve the teacher shortage prices that you get. To those parents who are worried about their children falling behind, I say I understand. I love my students, and I love myself more. I don't know any teachers who are sloughing off or simply trying to get away with not working. I currently work about 50, sometimes 60 hours a week, and the other teachers I know are working well beyond the number of hours in their contract. All of us are tired of this pandemic, but these are children that you brought into the world, and this is one of those hard times in life when families have to buckle down and look after each other. Point 4, the amount of take-home pay that you are asking me to risk my life or long-term health for is $652 per week. That's what I take home. I have a Master's of Science in Teaching from Fordham University, which is a top-tier school. I graduated magna cum laude from Augusta University as an undergrad, which is where I'm from Augusta. I just completed the graduate level sequence for my gifted and talented endorsement, and I have an extensive background in professional writing and editing. Number 5, the combined Christmas and so-called loyalty bonus this district provided added about $225 to my bank account. However, I have received no step increase or other pay raise this year, despite being asked to do more on top of risking my health and my life.
Ms. Watkins, your time's up.
May I have I'm almost done.
30 seconds.
Thus, while Governor McMaster claims, if there's a will, there's a way to open schools, that's an empty cliche. If it was true, we would have willed away the virus by now. What is observable, however, is that actions speak louder than words. Just because you say the health and safety of staff and students is your top priority does not make it true. What this vote should be about tonight is how long we're going on to virtual instruction, not whether we go back face to face and and we have no opportunity to social distance.
Ms.
So-
Watkins, I have to call time.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Terry Prosser.
I appreciate your time. I didn't come to talk about the hybrid model. To me, it's a no-brainer, but I'm not a teacher. I couldn't be a teacher, and I applaud everyone that is a teacher and has been a teacher, whether they're doing it virtually or in person. What I come to talk about was spring sports coming up. There's a rumor that it potentially could be canceled, postponed, whatever it is. And the more I thought about it, I'm thinking, what can we do for these senior kids that have lost last year and potentially may lose this year? And the more I thought about it, and I, asked some people on Facebook, I got a couple calls from some high school friends of mine, and it was more to it than the high school kids or the seniors. It was more of every athlete or student athlete. A lot of kids. One of my buddies called me and he said, I probably would have never graduated had it not been for athletics. He said, that's what kept me engaged. That's what kept me with friends that I never would have made. I've made friends through athletics that I never would have hung out in certain groups. And if you've ever been a coach, you understand the mentor process of it. I know Dwight's not here, but he was probably a little harder on me because he knew my family, but he was one. There's teachers that I remember that mentored me, but there's also athletic coaches that mentored me. And some of these kids don't get that at home. Not everybody has a mother and a father to go home to. And some of these teachers mentor kids, but also, they also look to athletics and some of these coaches that they don't see, that mentor these young men and young women. So, I know we have it coming up, and if we've got through football, we've got through basketball, or getting through basketball, there's no reason the spring sports that are outdoors, we can't do the same thing when they're a little bit further away and it's not as much contact. You know, I'll yield some of my time to somebody that wants to speak more about the hybrid model, I understand, but I just wanted to go ahead and preemptively start talking about spring sports, because it's coming up. We're talking about hybrid model, that's gonna be the next thing, whether it comes, goes, or is postponed. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. The next person is Peter Caldwell.
Okay, so can y'all hear me? Cool. Okay, so I'd first like to address everyone in the room. Thank you for being here. Thank you for
Could you
participating.
speak in?
Okay, great. This better?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'd first like to thank everybody who came today and our school board for being here. I know that any elected office is a lot of work, and thank you for fighting for your community. And community is actually what we're here to talk about today. My name is Peter Caldwell. I am a high school senior at Aiken High, and I'm here to address our return to 5 days a week. So, I wanted to start by saying I am opposed to that, and I'd like to apologize for maybe some inconsistencies in my speech I'm about to give, because I did have to condense it in order to meet time constraints, okay? So, the predominant concern, of course, 5-day week schedule. It does have some negative impacts on our community and healthcare system. As you guys all know, we live in Aiken. No secret that a large percentage of our community is over age 60, which is the highest risk group for COVID-19. While high school students may not be a high risk group in itself, we do present the opportunity to super spread. As you know, high schoolers, they're gonna go out and party. That's not personally who I am, but try to keep 1,200 high schoolers home. It's not gonna happen. They are going to give it to our teachers, our educators, who we try so hard to protect. They're going to give it to our grandparents, our parents, who are in those high-risk groups with underlying conditions and just being of age, I guess. Anyways, these are not outrageous claims. As of last week, University Hospital is nearing capacity. The AU Children's Hospital has had to convert its children's ICU into a COVID ward. Augusta University, our local medical university filled with professionals who know what they're talking about, stated avoid large gatherings, stay home, and I think of no event that goes against those guidelines more than a public school. If we were to return to a 5 days a week mode of instruction, which we already have, I might add, in November, if you all recall, there was no contact tracing. There was no social distancing. It was not a safe situation to be in. I, as a student, was scared for the health of my family and my teachers. I have a mother in healthcare. She was overwhelmed with her jobs. Our nurses and doctors at Aiken Regional are overwhelmed right now. They are posting about it on Facebook. They're saying, stay home. This is serious. This is making our job much harder than it has to be. We cannot take care of these patients who have other conditions, such as, I'm just going to throw some stuff out here, heart attack, maybe they're having a stroke. That's more of an emergency room thing. Anyways, patients that are hospitalized with other illnesses are entering hospitals, and they cannot get adequate care because so much attention is being diverted to COVID-19 patients. Reopening schools is going to be detrimental to community transmission, contact tracing, and our already stressed healthcare system. South Carolina, not New York, not California, I'm talking, this is close to home, this is here. South Carolina is one of these states in crisis in the United States right now. We have one of the highest community transmission rates. So I beg of you, School Board of Aiken County Public Schools, please do not contribute to that. I'd like to apologize for the scatteredness in my speech. As I said, I was sitting there condensing it. But I do thank you for your time. I apologize if I spoke too quickly. And I yield the rest of my time to whoever else would like to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. The Next person signed up is Katrina Mcgee.
Oh, I'm too short. Hello, I'm Karina Mcgee, an English teacher at Aiken High School. I've spoken here before, and I have been very vocal throughout this school year as I advocate for myself and my students, and I thank you for your time, both past and present. I just want to take a moment and just kind of mention, no matter my initial concerns about the way this school year is going to go, I have now experienced all three models of learning, and really four, referencing back to what we've experienced. I'm here to say that hybrid works. It has its faults, I understand, it has its flaws, but so does every school model, even before the pandemic. When we are all virtual, we do realize we are fully protected from the virus, but it is also more difficult to contact my students, particularly those who have tougher home lives. When we are traditional scheduling, my lesson planning is so much easier, and I can see my students every day, and I can make sure that I access them. But the spread of COVID-19 is completely unstoppable because there is no way of social distancing. I had one instance where in one day I suddenly had 12 students quarantined, and so my class of 18 went to a class of 6, and then 2 of them were just absent. My workload doubles anyway when we're full-time because all of those quarantined students, like she said, you have to figure out, okay, who went out what day, who got what instruction, who has access to internet at home, who didn't know they were going to be out, and so who didn't have it. So the quarantines are more detrimental to student consistent learning than this hybrid model that we have. Hybrid is that middle ground. I can see them at least once a week, usually twice. Sometimes, students are absent for different reasons, but I can hold them accountable. I can help my students learn, here's how I prioritize my time, here's how I hold myself responsible when I go home, and then check in with them the next week and say, okay, what worked for you, what didn't work for you? Half of my lesson planning at the beginning of this year was just, how do you go home and do work that you're used to doing in a school setting? And that's a real skill that everybody needs to learn, whether they go to college or into the workforce. Hybrid works. It works. We do a disservice to our students and, quite frankly, our faculty when we shift too often between models too. Students need time to adjust to those new routines. You need those routines. And they were just starting to get used to hybrid when we shifted back to full-time the last time. And then what was worse is we went to full-time and they started to get used to that, and then we ripped them back to virtual and then we put them back in hybrid. Every time we shift, they have to learn all over again how to learn. The best thing for students' mental health and success is to allow them the ability to just know for certain how they're going to attend school the next week. And I think a lot of times we forget how much that uncertainty affects them. Right now in hybrid, I'm essentially lesson planning twice for every class as I design units that can function in person and remotely to provide my students with that consistency, whether they're remote or they're full-time on quarantine. It is exhausting. But I would much rather continue this workload for the rest of the year than risk my health and my students' health unnecessarily, and to provide that sense of regularity in this chaotic year. My final thought is one I struggle to put into words without really sounding like I'm asking for pity, and I promise you I'm not. But I do want to speak to it because I think it helps garner a better understanding and awareness, because teachers are naturally giving people, and we don't often kind of speak about what we're going through. But I am drowning, to put it simply. I know these are unprecedented times and that things will eventually go back to normal, but I cannot even begin to count the number of times I have broken and seriously considered leaving this profession entirely. And it's not because I've had to adjust my teaching style, because teaching is monitoring and adjusting. That's what we do. It's because of the mindset this pandemic has exposed. It's because teachers, admin, and district officials spent over a month researching and designing an entirely new education system to keep us safe, only for large pieces of our recommendation to be abandoned without our input. It's because the safety committee voted to remain hybrid in October, but this board rejected their work and voted for us all to return full-time anyway. Because school board members insulted the teachers who were scared to teach in a room with 30 students, because we must not have believed the board was serious about returning to traditional scheduling, when really we had believed this board would listen to the safety committee to keep us safe. Because responses to my emails from board members were built with phrases like, essential workers have to work, teachers' main concern is just planning time, and well, only a few staff members have been hospitalized. as if hospitalization is not devastating and as if it's the only metric that matters. Because when numbers predictably skyrocketed after the return to traditional scheduling, this board asked a teacher while she was home sick with her entire family, including her toddlering 1-year-old with COVID, to explain a school's numbers while she was at home sick. Because our efforts to build a plan.
Your time is up, please, ma'am.
Can I have 10 more seconds?
Yes.
I know everybody's been saying that. But because our efforts to build a plane while we fly it are undermined when you suddenly change the blueprints and then turn around and tell us we're not good enough. You sent us back to full-time learning while you maintain social distancing at these meetings. Please continue providing us the safety you ask for yourselves. And I'm going to watch from home so that I do not accidentally spread COVID to someone else in case I have accidentally been exposed. Thank you.
I have time for one more person. I'd like for somebody who has a different, y'all might want to stick around for C4 because we're going to correct some of the misconceptions.
I will be watching from home. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Is there somebody who would like to speak? The next person I have is Melinda Ball.
I'll yield to my daughter, Melanie.
Okay. Now, you are going to speak about going back to school full-time, right? But I just want both sides to be heard.
Hi, I'm Melanie Ball, and I was at the last school board meeting. I came to talk about wanting to go back 5 days a week and why. School may not be my favorite thing in the world, but I don't like this hybrid model. As I explained last time, and I said at the end, aren't we your #1 priority? And from the last board meeting, it sounds like you didn't listen to us. All of us who presented wanting to go back 5 days a week. Also, a lot of those kids in school who I've talked to want to do 5 days a week. And are we your #1 priority? Your #1 priority is to teach us, not make us learn on our own. I feel you aren't making us your priority. You've taken it to where we have to practically teach ourselves and have our parents teach us if they have the ability, which isn't their job. Their job is to make money at their job and take care of their kids. If our parents were supposed to teach us all the subjects, then we wouldn't have school. So I have a petition of all the kids that I got that wanted to go 5 days a week to school. And I didn't have much time to get this, but I got 21 signatures from kids from my school and a couple from other schools. And so lastly, so school may not be my favorite, but I understand the importance of it. So please let us go 5 days a week in the next semester. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much for your comment. Appreciate that. I still have a few minutes remaining. I do have a request from a bus driver to talk about something that's different.
Very quick, very quick.
Okay. Would you like to? Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Survey Adigoon. I am a school bus driver for Area 2, that is the North Augusta area. Just very quickly, if the board would possibly consider this evening, I'm sure that you will, and I won't be able to stay. The policy about paying employees who become ill with COVID-19 is supposed to expire January 31st. On behalf of the bus drivers of Area 2, as well as probably most of the school bus drivers, we're really hoping that you extend that policy. I've had drivers talk to me today about, well, if I get COVID, it means I still got to come to work. So we really appreciate any consideration with extending that policy.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your remark. I'm going to ask Superintendent Lawrence. Ms. Bob, hold on just a second.
So yeah, the law, SFCRA, actually expired on December 31st.
Right.
We extended that, just by executive order till the end of this month. But I've already informed the chairman, I don't know if I've informed the rest of the board members, that we will have a proposal at the January 26th meeting to extend it for the remainder of the year. So we'll take care of that.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We have some special presentations. First is the Aiken Standards Community Christmas Card Donation.
What is it? Is this for me?
I get to introduce you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Pardon me.
so-
I didn't know the protocol.
That's good. So thank you, Mr. Chair. We just want to thank the Aiken Standard for the work that the Aiken Standard staff has done to share student achievements, staff success, and other pertinent news happening in our district and in our community, and the work that they do is invaluable. However, their work to support our community doesn't end with reporting what's going on and letting everybody be informed. The Aiken Standard, once again, this holiday season, asks for support for our students and families through its annual community Christmas card donation, which publishes the names of donors in the Christmas Eve edition of the newspaper. Year after year, the community has stepped up and answered that call. These donations allow school employees who see the needs of our students on a daily basis to meet those needs. Thank you to the Aiken Standard and to our community. We're happy to have Ms. Rhonda Overby, the publisher of the Aiken Standard, here tonight, and she's just going to show us how incredible our community is.
Are you sure?
Yes, it's you.
Okay. So that was a beautiful introduction, and I hope you all have seen the community Christmas card before. We had over 1,000 people who have donated individually over the 4 years of the community Christmas card. This year, we were really overwhelmed with the support. We raised $6,498, and 100% of the donations will be given back to the school district for use for the community Christmas card. So the readers of the Aiken Standard have heard my story, but the reason the Community Christmas Card Fund was put together was because I had an experience when I was an elementary school student. Over a short period of time, now you all know this was a few years ago, right? Over a short period of time, I found myself unable to see the chalkboard from the back row of the classroom. I had no idea the teacher was up there making the motions. It looked like she was doing something, but I couldn't see it. And the teacher called me over to her desk one day, and it really was, I mean, you talk about a life-changing moment. She pulled open the top drawer of her desk, and there was probably a dozen pairs of eyeglasses in there, and she gave me a pair. Y'all, what teachers can do for kids, it's amazing, because from then on, it increased my participation. It changed everything. And I think that our teachers are in unique positions where they see needs that we may not see. And if we can give them access to a fund like this, where they could, give a child a coat or a pair of gloves, take their mind off those basic needs that are not being met, refocus them on education, I think it could change lives. So we're happy to donate. So over 4 years, we have contributed $19,856 from our readers. So thank you for all you do, and thank you to our teachers. Oh yeah, the big check. Y'all, sorry. This will take just a minute. The big check. Who wants the money? Can I just lay it right here? Oh, you want it? I see, Kenny. Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it greatly. The next presentation is the Friendship Baptist Church donation to the Aiken County School.
So thank you again, Mr. Chair, and we are very grateful to our friends at Friendship Baptist Church of Aiken for their support of our students, and we're here with a donation of $6,000. This donation will be used primarily to fund technology needs for students. We know these funds will be a tremendous blessing to students at East Aiken School of the Arts, J.D. Lieber Elementary, North Aiken Elementary, Aiken Intermediate, Schofield Middle, and Aiken High School. Thank you so much to Dr. Doris Hickson, who is here tonight with her son on behalf of Friendship Baptist Church and on behalf of Reverend Clinton Edwards Jr. So, Dr. Hickson, come on up. And it's hard not to hug you. Dr. Hickson and I go way back, but I'm not going to hug you because there'll be a picture of it in the paper.
Good evening.
Good evening.
On behalf of Friendship Baptist Church, I am representing a program that was started when I retired from the Aiken County Public School. being the teacher that I am, I couldn't sit idly by, so I made me a job. And for 7 years, this is bothering me.
I know.
For 7 years, we worked the Eagle Enrichment program, which taught students from the Aiken County system the STEM and reading. And we hired your teachers to teach the students because we figured they knew what they were doing. This past year, because of the pandemic, we did not have the program. We're working with scheduling, like I'm hearing you all are working with here, to bring the program back. But we still wanted to do something for the children. So the executive board of the Eagle Enrichment program got together and we brainstormed, and you were the lucky winners of our donation. So we contributed $6,000. We don't have a big check, but we
We'll take
sent,
a little check.
we sent a check to the Aiken County School District in the amount of $6,000 to help wherever it could. So we decided to deal with technology, hotspots, or whatever is needed to help our young people. So know that we're there. If we can help you in any way, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. The next item is board member recognition. Dr. Mr. Lawrence?
So thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it is Board Member Appreciation Month, and I just want y'all to know that we appreciate you. We had a little bit of a glitch in our in our communications department, so we do have a presentation for you at our next school board meeting, but it's still Board Member Appreciation Month all January long. So we appreciate you every day, and we have something to demonstrate that to you at our next meeting. So we look forward to that. But thank you for all you do for your constituents, for Aiken County Public Schools, and for the community.
Under Office Board Chairman, we are in need of scheduling a couple of meetings. We have a tradition of doing town hall meetings. Those are meetings where the rules I read to you about public participation are relaxed. And anybody can come talk about anything and can actually have exchanges with the board. We schedule these meetings by numerical order of area. Area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next one is Area 5's turn. We had one in Wagner not too long ago, which is Area 4. So we need to schedule the meeting, the town hall meeting. The suggested time is January 19th, which is next Tuesday. If that's acceptable, I'd like a motion that we schedule. That's already on the calendar, okay. I just want to give an opportunity to vote. The second meeting that we need to schedule, you will have to vote on this, is a board workshop. There's a need to have, we are required, the board is required to have training in the Head Start program in order to receive the funding. And so we need to get together and do that. That would be one of the items that we would do at this meeting. And I'm proposing a Saturday morning from 9 to 12. There's also a need for us to review achievement data from the district. We could do that at that time. And also, we've discussed some hiring procedures and so forth of HR, and we thought that that would be an opportunity for our HR people to give us a presentation on how we recruit, hire, and try to retain teachers. So for those three items, I would ask that we have a Saturday morning workshop on January 23rd, 2021. That's a week from Saturday coming. I do need a motion for that. Would anybody propose to have that meeting?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we have a board work session as proposed on January 23rd from 9 to 12 to discuss the items you just mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. Is there a second? Ms.
Second
Shealy?
motion.
All in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Now we're going to the informational items. And I'll turn that over to Dr. Lawrence.
So I'll ask Dr. Murphy to come up and share the informational items. All of those are construction status reports. At least 1 through 6 are construction. 1 through 6 are construction status reports.
And for the public, we do not have to take a vote on these.
All right, well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, distinguished board members, Mr. Lawrence. Thank you, and I'm going to be bringing you a very brief overview of our construction status updates as to where they are right now. We'll begin at Belvedere. The masonry work continues, and now because of the cold weather, we have to wait for the warm start each day. We're installing mechanical ductwork, and installation board will soon start. We're also doing electrical rough-in and working on the waste lines above the ceiling. And this project is still currently within budget and on schedule. Hammond Hill is beginning. Preliminary site work and site prep have begun. The existing playground and basketball court equipment has been removed and silk fencing installed around the perimeter for the phase 1 construction site. Temporary playgrounds have been relocated to other vacant areas of the school that won't be impacted by the construction. You can see here we've installed a job site trailer. The foundation rebar and underground stone mortar structures have been delivered to the site. The general contractor is awaiting approval from the DOT to secure the grading permit in order to start foundation work and underground utility work. Because of that delay from the DOT, the project is 1 week behind schedule, but we're still on budget. Over at Midland Valley, the contractor is finishing up on the final punch list repairs in each building per the certificate of substantial completion. Furniture delivery, which is separate contract from the construction, but also coordinated by McMillan, Payson, and Smith, is nearing completion with a few customized pieces being delivered later on this month. So look at one of the classrooms there. The general contractor will begin removal of the portable classroom building as early as tomorrow, weather permitting. One of the portables is going to Freeman and the other is going to Gloverville, and this project is still on schedule and within budget. Over at Millbrook, a couple looks at the 2-story portion. The next major milestone at Millbrook will be the installation of the roof system and the storefront windows. This project is on budget and is currently tracking on schedule with the following qualification. The building will be complete in April of 2021. The site is on target to open for August of 2021, but there will be about 4 weeks of miscellaneous work occurring after the start of school due to rain delays and unforeseen conditions. This work will not impact school activity. North Augusta High, we are complete. I'm happy to report that phase 3 of this project is complete, and we're now just transitioning into the phase which involves the demolition of the old gym, and we're making preparation to begin that, as well as installation of a band practice field. This phase was completed on time and within the budget. And this is an aerial view for you to see the completed project. Rich Beam Minetta is going along as planned. A couple of looks from the outside. That's a typical first floor classroom. So finally, the construction of the new elementary school addition is continuing ahead of schedule and within budget. The exterior envelope of the building is 90% complete. Interior finishes, including the final paint, ceiling tile, casework, flooring, and mechanical electrical trim are all out and on progress. This project is within budget and is continuing actually ahead of schedule. Pending your question.
Any questions or comments?
One comment. I'm speaking on behalf of Ms. Reinhardt Jackson because she has no voice tonight. But I think we all will agree, she said she saw a shot of the North Augusta gym. It's absolutely beautiful and the community loves it. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Crane?
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Looks like good progress despite some of the weather delays. You may have said this as you were going through, I didn't catch it, I was taking some notes. With the Hammond Hill project, where are we at that as far as time and budget?
Well, we're just not getting started. Right now, we're doing a lot of the prep work, the groundwork, and the issue is that we're falling behind because DOT, we're having to get their approval to come out and approve some of the work. So that's one of the issues that are plaguing the project, but it's not a problem at this point.
Cool, thank you.
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a planned walkthrough at Midland Valley, or is that forthcoming? Am I jumping the gun a little?
No, we can definitely plan that. We don't have one actually scheduled right now, but that'd be something we can look forward to doing. We had mentioned it a little bit at, when we were at the North Augusta walkthrough, but we didn't set a date. So if you would like, I'll have that coming out very shortly.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, the next item is the financial report as of July 31, 2020. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Lawrence, board members. We typically bring these financial statements as the audit's completed last month. We brought the results of the audit, numbers are rolled forward, and that's why these appeared later than usual. We presented July and August here, nothing unexpected. You can look forward to seeing subsequent months. We'll catch up over the next meeting or two there as well, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. It's just a brief summary by fund of expenditures and revenue today through those periods.
Anyone have a question for Mr. Johnson?
Thank you.
We covered both of those, those remarks. All right, big items. These are the following items will be voted on as a group. Individual items may be discussed prior to the vote being taken. We start with a motion to approve the items as presented. Is there a motion? Dr. Shealy moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Right, Mr. Sy. All right, let's just take these in order. The first is the ratification of this motion. You have a list of those. Is there a motion to approve to ratify these motion? Oh, that's right, we did them at the end. I've done this before, but it's been a long time, so bear with me. The second item is we have to approve the donation from the Friendship Baptist Church, the donation. We accept it. Any questions or comments? Next is the volunteer board of the University Healthcare System donation to the Aiken County Career and Technology Center. Would you like to make some remarks about that, Mr. Lawrence? It's basically, it's just that the University Healthcare is donating items valued at $2,577.08 to the Career Technology Center Cosmetology Program. Next item is the submission of a grant application by the Division of Human Resources and Administration for the South Carolina School Board's Insurance Trust Risk Control Grant. Any questions? Next item is membership of the Aiken County Public School District Head Start / Early Head Start Policy Council. You see there a listing of the people who are already on that. And we are being asked to approve the updated list of policy council members and alternates. item is to change order number 2 for the Ridge Spring Manila High School Phase 2 addition. Essentially, they're asking that we have a credit in the total amount of about $750,000. Any questions? Change order number 2 for the Midland Valley High School addition project. They are asking that we pave the ROTC Marching area, build a band field tower, and install lights, seal coat, stripe, and repair the student parking lot.
I have a quick question there.
Yes, sir.
If I may.
That-
With regard to the parking lot, does that include, is it intended to include the sand parking lot that's used day in and day out behind the scoreboard? Is that part of this request?
The initial request was for us to fix that parking lot that had a lot of potholes in it. The front, it was the very front parking lot, and also had some damage to a couple of the light poles. I'm not familiar, okay, he's telling me no, it's not gonna include that.
Okay, all right.
All right, you've heard the items. We have a motion to approve. All in favor?
No, I'm sorry, I'm slow. I just had one more question about
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
about that change order number 2. Is the change order here simply because this part of the project wasn't in scope, or is this above budget?
It's actually, it wasn't an initial scope, but we do have contingency money, built into the plan itself. And so we're well under the owner contingency funds that were allowed in this bill.
For this specific project?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That's everyone. All right, now we go to the C items. First is personnel appointments. You have the list before you. Is there a motion to approve?
We move to approve the personnel appointments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Silas, seconded by Dr. Hanks. All in favor, please raise your hand. Yeah, that's everyone. We have 2 sets of policies. They're different items, so I guess we better. On second reading, we have changes to policy GCC, professional staff leave and absences, and policy GDC, supported staff leaves and absences. This is the final reading. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to.
Okay, moved by Mr. Moten. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Crush. All in favor, please vote. Okay, approved. Second set of policies that are up for approval. Changes to administrative rules, GCC-R, professional staff leaves and absences, and administrative rule GDC-R, support staff leaves and absences. Again, this is the second presentation of these rules. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Silas. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Hunt. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Again, it's a unanimous. Right. We now come to item C4, which is we have to make a decision about what we're going to do after January 15th. And so we're going to discuss the COVID situation and what we're going to do about the instructional model we'll use when we return to school. Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Mr. Postel is here, and I'm going to ask him to come forward. We've actually already started this discussion because we had input from the community, so I absolutely appreciate that. I don't know if you are aware that Ms. Mcgee, who was one of the speakers, is actually our first-year teacher of the year. So it was nice to see her tonight. But Mr. Postel met with the advisory committee yesterday, and I've shared with you information from the meeting and the summary of the meeting, and I'll let him share that again and answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, sir. Dr. Bradley, Mr. Lawrence, members of the board, good evening to you. You should have in your packet that summary that Mr. Lawrence is talking about. It's the one with the blue boxes on it. This is the data that we reviewed, or a brief summary of the data we reviewed last night. And looking at the total number of cases or the daily cases in the state, the county, and then school district specific data, in particular, the rise in cases among our students and staff members. The committee made the recommendation last night to remain in the current status for all grade levels, and then allow schools to move individually to a more restrictive model based on the threshold matrix that was created and approved by this board. And that's our recommendation.
Any questions or comments, anything that you'd like to add? Anything you want to add, Mr. Lawrence?
Yes, sir, I just want to add that I absolutely appreciate the effort and the energy that Mr. Postel and his advisory committee have put into this work. This is, I don't want to say it's thankless work, but it is, looking at some of the members of the committee, you might not agree with that. But they work very hard. They're very, very passionate about this, and truly look at all of the data, and based on that, based on the input that they get from a variety of constituencies. This is a committee that's made up of healthcare professionals, it's made up of educators, it's made up of parents. So there's good representation across the board on the committee, and I'm just pleased with the work that they've done. I just want to state for you that my recommendation is that we follow the recommendation that the committee made, and maintain our current hybrid model for middle and high school, and the modified 4-day-a-week hybrid model for elementary school after January 15th. Now, the question remains, for how long? And I think that's something that is up for certain debate and conversation. At the last meeting, the board authorized me to make changes on a school-by-school basis for when specific targets were hit. 3% of the student population confirmed positive, or 25% of the instructional staff being either quarantined or isolated. In other words, not being available for the safe operation of our instructional program. So those two things would give me the authorization to go to the next most restrictive model. In the case of teachers, the next most restrictive model might not be available. And the reason I say that is, if you don't have the staff to run a safe educational program 2 days or 4 days, you don't have the educational staff to do it for 5 days, you don't have it to do it 2 or 4 days either. So that almost always would be a move to remote learning. If we don't have the staff to operate safely, it would be a remote learning situation. I don't know that I'm going to put this in the form of recommendation, but I do want to say it out loud. I'm thinking that we have to give some stability to our teachers. We have to give some stability to our families. It has to be something where when we're looking at the hybrid model, I see some specific dates, and the dates that are in our calendar, to me, are our interim date and our quarter date. So 4.5 weeks from now, to me, seems like a logical time to look at whether or not conditions have changed enough to move into 5-day-a-week instruction. If conditions aren't such that we could do that, then the next benchmark, I think, would be the quarter, or 9 weeks from now, or 9 weeks from Monday, or 9 weeks from the 25th. Make sure I'm at the right point. From a more restrictive standpoint, I don't think any of that matters, because if the conditions warrant moving from, say, with elementary school from 4 days a week to a blue-red 2-day-a-week hybrid, then we're going to do that. But I think in looking at when we can safely go to 5 days a week, that the 4.5-week interim point and the 9-week quarter point are good times to look at that seriously. And so that's the suggestion that I make to you to authorize me to make that call at that point in time.
Okay, any discussion? That's great.
I have this is more on the matrix than the recommendation from the task force. I'm wholly fine with the recommendation that's put forth. On the matrix, I think the 3% threshold is good as far as students are concerned. I'm not sure that upon reflection and feedback, that 25% is maybe the right spot. I'm not sure I want to make a motion to that, but I guess I'm just asking if we want to consider maybe lowering that to 20 or something like that. And I think you had mentioned this at one point conversationally, that the percentages are different based on campus, right? So 10% at RSM is different than 10% at North Augusta type situation. But in some of the schools where I guess 25% is past the point of serious risk to the instruction, like you just said.
Yes, sir, Mr. Crane. I think that the 25% is a good number to have on paper, but we have to have those conversations, and that's why we looked at it from a, if you're green, you're less than 10% of your staff is out, you're good to go. Yellow is between 10 and 25%. I think when you get to 20%, the principal and I have to start having that conversation. We have to start looking at what other resources are available. We have to start giving advice on how to utilize staff within the school to meet needs. And beyond that, utilize staff within the district. It becomes an all hands on deck kind of situation where whatever we can do to keep the school open, we need to do that to keep the school open. And whether that's at 20% for a certain campus or 25 at another, you could go to 30 for some, I'm sure. But that's a conversation that's going to have to be had with the principals and seriously look at what resources are available and how we can maintain a safe and orderly environment for our students. I think I said at the last meeting, that's only going to work a couple of times. And once we use all the resources in the school, and then we pull resources from the district for one school, then we get another school that we have to pull resources from the district, those resources are going to run out. And so at that point, we're going to be stuck with having to go to at least a week of remote learning to let those quarantines and isolations clear out and get back up to, I don't think we get back up to full capacity. We don't get back up to full capacity in a perfect day, but get back up to a reasonable number where we can safely operate the school.
Well, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure we're sensitive to the different percentages is fine, but it's different campus by campus, right, as you pointed out. And just, I guess as a follow-up to that, I mean, if you look at our case-by-case data, which we were emailed along with the recommendations, percentage-wise, most of our quarantine and positive cases continue to be fairly low as a percentage. And again, you go school by school, that's not necessarily the case. This is maybe two points, 1 point sort of together. We've got roughly 2,600, if I recall the number right, additional students coming back in for Make and Innovate here in just a couple weeks.
Yes, sir, just about.
Are we comfortable with that with this recommendation, and then I'll segue in, and I think Ms. Reinhardt Jackson might do this if she wasn't to have a voice issue. What about transportation with that and with everything we're talking about here? That's probably a couple of things all at once, but I'll just toss it out there because it's on my mind, and I know it's on some other folks' mind.
I think I saw Ms. Harris here, I know I see Mr. Rowland back there, but one thing that we would have to do from a transportation standpoint is maintain the 66%, 67% that the state has required for us on those buses. So it could require us to add some more routes, doubling up some routes even, which could affect the, students to getting to school on time, getting home on time, those kinds of things. But from a safety standpoint, we wouldn't overload buses. So those 2,500 students, I don't know how many of them are bus riders. Transportation knows how many of them are bus riders. But routes are being created to make sure that we maintain that 67% or less on the buses and get students to school and get students home as efficiently as possible.
And just final point, follow up to that, do we have a breakdown of schools yet for that 2,600 kids, where they're going? Is that in here? Or do we
I don't
have
think
that?
I have it for you. We do have that, though.
I know it's a little early, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing that one. But that's not all at one school, I would assume, there are 2,600 students go to one campus. But I'd like to see that when we have it, please. That's all I have, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to sort of feed off of what Mr. Crane was talking about, Mr. Lawrence. I've had, and I think I expressed it the night that we approved the policy, I still have a concern even with your explanation of the 25%. I still think it's high, and this is through consultation with a couple of schools and the struggles that they're having right now at 18%. And they're more than that. I wanted to ask, when we came up with that, I think you had an excellent reason for saying that it was instructional staff only. But I would argue that the non-instructional staff has a big impact on a school. For instance, particularly with COVID, the janitorial staff and the cleaning of the schools, if we don't include those and they're unable to sanitize the schools because they have a higher than 25% absentee rate, then I think we have an issue. And I don't think teachers can be expected to cover that ground. So I think we ought to look at, I'm just suggesting, I'm not even making a motion right now, I just think we ought to look at, number one, that 25% number, but number two, who's included in that 25% number. Because if we say office staff or lunchroom staff or janitorial staff or bus drivers don't matter, and I know that's not what we're saying, I'm not trying to twist it, but I think they need to be considered in the number, that's all.
Well, and that's certainly a point well taken. And we have to compartmentalize a little bit, because we've actually had a handful of kitchen staff that had to be quarantined completely. And so that's kind of a different circumstance. We didn't close the kitchen, we just got, well, maybe we did. We either got additional staff in there, or we had meals prepared at another school and taken to that school. So when you're looking at cafeteria staff, yeah, they're critical to the operation of the school, but we address that in a different way. And when we look at custodial staff, the same way. Safety is paramount. We can't not disinfect and clean as we need to do. So when they can double up if one custodian's out and often still accomplish the requirements. But when more than one custodian is out, it becomes more difficult, and we have to get temps in there, or we have to shift for maintenance, or get support from other schools. But we're addressing those things in a different way than we would address the instructional staff. We don't see those areas as necessarily requiring that we go to remote instruction for that school, because we can pull resources from other places. With instructional staff, we are much more limited in how we can do that.
It's South.
Ms. Shealy, you before me, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to say that over the past week, I've reached out to administrators and some teachers and parents in my area, and the overwhelming number of people that I've talked to agree with what we're saying, that they would like to see us go hybrid in the Wagner and Ridge Spring area in particular. I know in Mr. Crane's area as well, the internet service just still isn't strong enough, and we still have some issues that concern people. I did hear from 3 that, did say that they wanted to go virtual, but I just feel, that I wanted to share what the overwhelming majority in my area was feeling, and I also asked them about sanitizing supplies and that kind of thing, and all of them assured me that they were getting what they needed and that they weren't having any problem with that. So I definitely feel comfortable with hybrid. I definitely want to say my heart is, at wanting to go back to 5 days a week, but I just don't think it would be wise to do that right now, even though it hurts me to say that. I feel like we do have to, keep everybody safe, but also, keep them educated and give them the best education that we can, right now. So I appreciate the thought that everybody has put into this plan. And just because I don't hear as well sometimes, I just want to make sure and clarify, are we also saying for elementary that they would go back to the hybrid schedule after January 15th for a while?
I mean, the recommendation is for them to stay in the 4-day-a-week schedule they're in right now.
Okay. I will mention a concern, just a concern that I've heard about that, is that some are saying they're afraid that they won't, excuse me, won't be able to social distance as well with the virtual students coming back. So I did want to share that concern.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out, I was going to mention this a little later, but we did just get 10,000 desk shields in, and these are the fully clear ones that meet all of the DEC requirements. They're tall enough, they're wide enough, and they're long enough. So those will be prioritized based on the concentration of students. So, and right now, obviously, that's elementary schools because of the two cohorts being combined. So we're getting those deployed as quickly as we can now.
A couple of things. If I missed it, I apologize, but I don't think I saw it. Do we have any schools approaching either of those 2 thresholds?
Yeah, we have, Wagner Sally High School is at a little over 2% of students who are positive. That's 4 students. So sometimes you have to look at the size of the school, and that's why, as Mr. Crane and I were discussing, you really have to look at the campus. What's the impact of the 3% would be 6 students at Wagner Sally High School. So what is the impact of 6 students on that campus? And while it's a very small student population, it's a huge, very spread out campus. So I think that's a conversation that has to be had before becoming more restrictive for that population. On the other hand, 3% at North Augusta High School is 37 students. Again, a very big camp. Well, not a big campus, a big school. But 37 students could certainly have an impact. That would be almost students permeating every part of the school possibly. So I think you look at that 3% a little bit differently maybe than you look at 3% of the school at Wagner Sally. So those are some things that make the decisions a little bit harder, but they ensure that we're making decisions in the best interest of the students and considering all of the factors when we reach that point.
Were those percentages in here anywhere that I missed? I see, I put total students, but I didn't see it as a percent, but point it out to me if it is.
I think this,
Okay, I
this,
see.
this was a later item for you.
Okay.
It's not in the packets behind it.
Oh, so it was not stapled to. Ah, there it is, first page that I left behind. Thank you. That's what I needed then for that. And secondly, I'd like to talk about substitutes real quick.
Yes.
I see that was included in here, the fill rates at around 71 to 76 or so %. Is that something we can live with? Can we operate at that? And where do we stand with the provider of our substitute that contract on, since we talked last? I think Ms. Hart gave us a little update. Have they made some improvement on finding that our appeal to the public yield any results?
And I'm gonna ask Ms. Hart to speak to that, but to answer your question, no, we can't live with it, and that's why we have this provision about the 25%. If I wasn't worried about substitute fill rate, that wouldn't be an issue. I mean, having a substitute instead of the regular classroom teacher is not ideal, but it is someone who is at least minimally trained, who has a heart for the job and is in there to support those students and can continue, at least to a reasonable degree, the instructional plan that the teacher has left. So yeah, that's the reason we have to consider going to remote if we lose that instructional staff. If we get to a point where the provider is able to recruit enough subs, we don't even have to think about that anymore.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm gonna let her.
Well, the short answer is no, as Mr. Lawrence said, we can't live with that. Numbers in the 70% fill rate is well below the contractually agreed upon fill rate of 95% or higher. Obviously, we're in a pandemic, so I'm certainly willing to extend grace. We understand it may not be at 95% or higher, but 70s is certainly not acceptable. I have not yet seen an improvement. If I'm being just bluntly truthful, we are continuing to work with them daily in the hopes to help continue that. Thanks to everyone who has shared the post on their Facebook page. And I know that they're continuing to work through individuals that are interested. And I know that they are struggling to find people who are willing to do so. And numbers across the area, COVID infection rates are very high. That's certainly impacting their ability as well. And then the final thing I would say is that we have just released the RFP to go out to bid. And certainly our current provider will have that opportunity to rebid for that, but we are coming to the completion of our initial contract term with them, and want the opportunity to see what decision we might need to make for future years.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a comment on that. I've had two people, I'm talking to two adults that I know who have gone through the process just out of the generosity of their hearts because they don't need the job. And they both commented that it's an extraordinarily difficult process to become a substitute because of all the things that they are required to do, including getting TV shots or whatever at the own expense. And, that's the requirement, not our requirement, it's the requirement of the company that they have to be employed by in order to work for us. But, I would suggest maybe somebody review that and see if there's anything that we could do to make the process of becoming a substitute a little bit easier.
Certainly can assess the process. The TB is a state requirement.
I
We can't
understand, but
minimize that, but I do hear what you're saying, and
maybe we ought to do everything else first, and then if we hire them, maybe we ought to pay for that, something like that. Maybe it just depends on how desperate we are for substitute.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want, go ahead. No, I can certainly understand Dr. Bradley wanting to make it as easy as possible, but I've seen what they have to go through, and you have to have a college degree, a negative ATV test and 5 hours of training. That's,
Well, you know, can you do it with a high school?
You can do it at the high school, but you do have to have, the parapro assessment, or, a minimum of 60 hours of college credit. So there are specific requirements. Now, if you were gonna be an aide, and not a substitute teacher, but a substitute aide, you could do that with high school only. Yes, sir.
Specifically, the county complaints I got were just locating all the documents that were required.
Yes.
Never mind. Mr. Pope.
Just a quick question for you, Ms. Hart, before you sit down. Am I right, I've heard, and I'm just trying to confirm this, I've heard the schools fill about 50% of their vacancies themselves. And so we only ask this agency to do about the other 40 to 50%, is that correct?
So I'll be honest and say I would have no way of knowing that. Every absence runs through the absence management system and creates an absence request. If the principal and or the teacher has identified somebody they have a relationship with, they would communicate that directly to the representative with ESS, the third party provider. It certainly is possible. And I do know that oftentimes when a teacher is going out on a long-term leave, they have their own group of connections that they reach out to individuals that they would trust or have trusted in the past to take care of their class. So I wouldn't doubt that number, but I don't have a way to validate that number.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But even with that, those subs are employed by ESS.
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gray?
Thank you, Ms. Hart. I realize that the COVID discussion's kind of gone down some rabbit trails, but it's all good stuff. I've had a handful of folks ask me who are retired district employees who've subbed before, or maybe not retired, but like my wife, who has medical issues, but she wants to step up and help, even with everything going on. If they have questions about the whole process, because I don't really know much about the process beyond my wife going through it here recently, can we send them to you, or who's the right person for them to reach out to?
Sure. I'm always happy to help answer any question I can. Tisha McIver is our primary contact with ESS. If there are delays, concerns, follow-up issues, anything that Ms. McIver is unable to assist with, or questions that are beyond that scope, absolutely they can come to me. And I do preface that in saying my door is always open, so I'm not saying don't call me, but Tisha would be my first call, and then I'm happy to address anything.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If there's nobody else, I have a comment or two. Dr. Hanks, go ahead.
I have a comment about back to the classroom.
Whatever you like.
This goes back to the classroom. Thank you, Jennifer. I would like to say that I, like most of us, was really looking forward to getting our students back to full-time. I am in agreement with what we have said tonight, that going back full-time in these conditions with the numbers that we have is just not a feasible option. So the hybrid model seems to be the better way to go. My concern is, and I'd like just to get the numbers as soon as we can, as to those 2,500 virtual students that are coming back into the classroom. Especially, I'd like to know on an elementary level. What is that doing for our elementary teachers? They already are 4 days a week with probably a class that's already filled, and any adjustments or resources we will need to consider in bringing extra students back to the classroom.
I'd like to make a comment or two, and then we'll vote. I'm concerned because we're still talking about the district rather than individual schools. I mean, I haven't heard anything tonight about doing this on a school-by-school basis, and I look at the numbers. First of all, there was some implication about people who spoke tonight, some of them, that made me feel like I was a selection officer at a death camp or something, you know. We have always been under 1%, you know, in terms of the number, the incidence of COVID in the student population. Well, COVID has been pretty flat ever since it started. It's a little higher this time, but it's not as high as it has been. You know, we haven't seen this anticipated spike that you see when you look at the general population. Our data doesn't track the DHEC data. You know, it's a different ballgame. The major threat we've had in the past was from the number of quarantines. You know, we right before Thanksgiving, we had to go remote because we weren't going to have enough teachers for the 2 days before the Thanksgiving break. But again, that had to do with quarantine, not COVID. I'm looking at the numbers right now. We've got some schools that don't even have a single case. And yet we're going to treat them just like the ones who have a much higher percentage. I think the only fair thing to do is we've got to start treating these things individually. We're keeping kids out of school for no reason. You know? I mean, unless the reason is that we're afraid they're going to get sick, and that's a possibility. But until we see the trend move up in the school population, I'm torn. I mean, I hate for the kids to take the risk, but they just not. In spite of what some of the teachers say, I just don't believe they're getting everything we've got to give. You know, I don't think you can learn in 2 days what you can in 5, even with the number of kids sitting around you. Because particularly at high school level, you don't get that individual instruction. It's more group oriented. So that's my, you know, I'm not going to get on a soapbox any longer about it, but that's my feeling. I think that we have to, at some point, acknowledge that not everybody's the same. Also, we did talk about, we talked about going more restricted, not less restricted. We don't have a plan in place. I thought we did when we voted on the color thing the other day, but I must have misunderstood. You know, we need a plan in place to consider going back full time, not just waiting until everybody gets there. But anyway, that's my opinion. I'll shut up with this. Mr. Duff.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that a little bit, not to Bradley, but maybe a little different. But so, and I'll try not to testify, but it's going to sound like that.
Go ahead.
So I've always thought that it's interesting times we live in, that I always thought the schools should be, you got to look at the data, but schools should be one of the last things that close. And it's interesting that we're in an environment where we're pretty much open for business, but we're having to have discussions about is it safe to go to school or not? Which I think, it's not it's a very valid question and discussion. And y'all know I have 2 kids in high school. I think I'm the last one on the board that has kids in public school right now. And I've seen them struggle. But I've also seen them struggle more when they were quarantined, and the effect that has on it. And if y'all remember, I just try, practically speaking, back in November when we, you can think what you want. I agree. There hasn't been any outbreaks of cases that you say, ooh, we got an outbreak of COVID in this school. I mean, I wouldn't call it that. But y'all remember back in November, we had a handful of schools that were overwhelmed with quarantines to the point that they probably should have closed. I mean, in hindsight. And, since then, what's changed? Well, we have reduced our quarantine period from 14 days to 7 to 10 days. But in the same time period, I'll just don't quote me, right? But our incident rate has basically tripled from when we were in school full-time the last time to now. And it's been that way for 4 weeks. So I worry about the inconsistency that a high level of quarantines will present to students and working families. As you get surprised that your kid's going to have to be home for 10 days. And I don't think enough things have changed in a positive way that you would predict to have. I think you predict you'd have way more quarantines eventually than we did in November. Just thinking about it. So that's why I think about how that inconsistency impacts and interrupts education, and the schedules of working families, that I think it's not a speculation, it will happen. And I just don't think it's very practical. But I agree with you, we're kind of deciding what we're doing next week, you know what I mean? At the same time, at some point, Mr. Lawrence is starting, you know, after tonight, he's got to manage this, right?
Only in one direction.
Well,
We haven't really talked about going back to school, you know, who makes that decision and when? You know, I mean, my thought was when we looked at the color chart, that if it was green, we would go full-time, if it was yellow, we would go hybrid, and if it was red, we would go remote. That may be unrealistic, with the set percentages, we get alter the percentages, but I think we need a sliding scale here that works both ways. Or either the board's gonna be sitting here in 2 or 3 months or whatever, going through this again. You know, this is the 3rd or 4th time this year we've gone through this. It's not a pleasant experience for anybody. Everybody wants to do the right things, just that we can't agree on what the right thing is. You get mixed signals from experts, you get mixed signals from everybody. Good. And what we need, the idea behind giving the authority to the superintendent with a set of fixed guidelines is that we don't have to spend, 3 or 4 hours, well, more than that. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I put in this week answering the phone and answering emails, because, you know, it's the same thing every time we do it, nothing new. But we get all this argument about why we should do one thing or the other. And I want to streamline it, but at the same time, I want to do it correctly. And my thought was, when we came up with the color option here, that this is the answer. We've got a set of criteria for being full-time, we got another set of criteria for being hybrid, and yet a third set of criteria for remote. Not to say that we couldn't take into account factors like reconciling that was just discussed with 4 kids being over 1%. I mean, you know, we have to use some common sense and judgment. But as a general rule, you know, I think that as long as we move as a district, we're depriving a group of children from education that they could profit from. Just because several other schools have much higher incidence rates than they do. So that's where I'm coming from.
I want to apologize in advance for my voice, so y'all please bear with me. I want to play devil's advocate for a minute, Dr. Brandon, on what you said. Let's just suppose we go back to face-to-face, and we've given the superintendent the, authority to go back to least restrictive model per school. But then there's an outbreak, regardless, just across the board. Then yet, as a district, we're gonna have to come right back to the table, just like you said, to go ahead and make a decision district-wide, yet again, on what it is we're gonna do as far as educating our kids. And as you all know, it's no secret that my position has always been that what is in the best interest of everybody. And I mean, from the bus drivers all the way back up to the superintendent to the board. But I'm in favor, and I don't have a problem with saying it, of continuing our hybrid model. And I say that simply because we have to have some consistency. I'd rather for us to be in school at least a majority of the time than out of school and on the virtual model 100% of the time. And it's difficult for everybody, but in my opinion, in my eyes, and the parents that I've spoken with, that's a better compromise than just having the children go back to school, we get a quarantine, and they're home virtual, period. That's just my opinion.
I agree that what you do is you play with a yo-yo when you do this, but at the same time, I think of all those days that the kid is missing But even if we have to yo-yo, even if we send them back for a month and then we have to go back to hybrid, that's 3 times 4, 12 days of instruction that they had, that they wouldn't have otherwise. I think we probably argued enough. Does anybody else have anything they want to say before we ask for a motion? We don't have a motion, do we?
Yes, sir.
No, we need a motion.
Dr. Bradley, can I make just one comment? It's sort of benign. This comment is not meant for me, it's meant for the public and the parents. And it's, I'm trying to keep it as brief as possible. Sitting up here and going through this, and this is for all of you here, we hear the arguments. I heard that young lady earlier, and, excuse me, I know she wants to be in school, okay? And I think every member of this board does. And we get a lot of emails that think we're just callous to that. And that's far from the truth. We're not callous at all. We're in a very hard position because there's no one entity other than this board that will make a decision on whether the children go full-time, hybrid, or fully virtual. And so this board, I think, all of us, united, are trying to make the best decision we can for our children and also our teachers. Because the incident rate with the teachers is far higher than what we have with students. And so we hear the teachers as well. And I just want people to understand that that's our thought process. We do follow the science. There's never been a time that we've strayed from CDC or DHEC guidelines, and there's only been one time that we went against our advisory council guidelines. So I need people to just understand we're in a very tough position, and we're doing the best we can, and that's all.
Ms. Sheila? Mr. Crane, I don't know who was first, one of you.
I just want to take just a moment to echo what Mr. Moulton said. He said it beautifully. All of us on this board take this vote seriously, and we hear everybody. We know that you want to be back in school, and we want you to be back in school. We want all of our students to be back in school. You deserve that. And we're faced with a tough decision right now because we want to keep everybody healthy and safe. We also want to keep the education going that you deserve. And we also want to look at the emotional toll that it's taking on everybody, because it does. And so I, along with the rest of the board, take this seriously, and as Mr. Moulton said, just, realize that we do take it seriously, and we ask for your patience, and ask for you to just be with us as we make this decision tonight, and know that it isn't anything that we're taking lightly at all.
Mr. Gray?
I was just wondering if Mr. Lawrence would like to maybe add anything with the point that you were just making, Dr. Bradley, about the matrix essentially only goes one direction. I don't know that I necessarily agree with what you're saying, but I do agree that it doesn't. I don't know that it lets us go to full at any point with it, and I don't think we need to be going to full right now. But I'm just curious about that. If you can speak to that, Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, sir. My thoughts on the decision that was made at the last board meeting and on the matrix and looking at the 3% for student infections and looking at the 25% for quarantines and isolations for instructional staff, I did see that as going both ways. And I saw it as going both ways because it assumed a baseline of traditional instruction. So the matrix itself assumes that regular instructional baseline, so that you say hit the 3% of student infections and have to go to the more restrictive level. You go to the more restrictive level, once that situation is resolved, then you go back to the less restrictive model. So I did see it in my mind that way. It's a little more problematic, a little more complicated when we're starting in the middle, because right now we're in the hybrid model and there's nowhere to go other than to virtual from that point, or to remote from that point. So it makes it a little more difficult because you kind of had a middle road. If we were in full-time, 5-day-a-week instruction, you've got some middle ground that you can work with, and we really wouldn't have that now. Elementary school, we do have that. I think I said earlier tonight that with elementary, if one of those schools hits those thresholds and I have that consultation with the principal, then we could go to a blue-red hybrid with elementary as opposed to the 4-day instruction that we're doing now. So we do have that there. I also mentioned earlier tonight that I do concern myself with a little bit with the yo-yoing and with uncertainty for families and teachers and students and everyone else. That if you approve continuing with the model that we're in now, I would like that to include the authority for me to make a decision at 4.5 weeks, and then another decision at 9 weeks if that 4.5 weeks isn't practical because of the community spread. I'd like to be able to do that. There are many members of the advisory committee here tonight. I think their role has to change, because once you put that decision-making in my hands, they don't have to come and make presentations to you, and we don't have to have these debates. But I would, I just thank them for what they've done and the efforts that they've put in, and ask that they be willing to stay on every 4 weeks or so to consult with me the way that you've consulted with the board. So that would be ideal if you're willing to do that. But that would be my request. I think that the matrix works. I like there being one decision point. When we get to that point, we either go more restrictive or we stay where we are. I think if we look at this criteria is going to be remote, this criteria is going to be hybrid, this criteria is going to be full traditional, I think it doesn't necessarily get confusing, because you've got you've got colors that you can look at it, and it's clear what you think should happen. But when you have to put all of the other transient things in there, when you have to talk about the size of the school, the size of the campus, the makeup of the faculty, what the offerings are in that school. You have a lot of classes with low enrollment. You have a lot of classes with high enrollment. There are a lot of conversations that have to take place with principals before an actual decision to move from hybrid to remote, or from traditional to hybrid can happen. So I like the idea of, here's the decision point, 3%, here's the decision point, 25%, and that works in the other direction once the matrix is in force. But for the immediate future, and looking at the district as a whole, I would like that interim threshold and that quarter threshold.
Anybody?
If anybody else doesn't have any questions or comments, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we maintain the current model of hybrid, and that it is continued for at least the next 4.5 weeks, with authority given to the superintendent to assess as needed using the matrix that is already in place.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. And this does not pay any attention to the school by school. It's a district move, right?
The school by school model is already in place.
Right.
Help me understand this motion. If we are voting to put that the school district remain on the hybrid for the next 4.5 weeks. Does that mean all schools, or does it mean only the ones at a certain level, or what does it mean?
Well, let me rephrase it.
I'm sorry?
I said, let me rephrase it then, if that's okay. I make a motion that we maintain the current model of hybrid, and that it is continued with the authority given to the superintendent to assess as needed using the Main Street on a school-by-school basis.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Let's vote. All right, Mr. Grundy.
I'm gonna split hairs, just to be specific. You're saying hybrid for middle and high school and maintain the 4-day with elementary school?
That's correct, thank you, yes.
Any other comment?
I just want to clarify, because there still seems to be a little confusion. We are saying that we're going to adopt a hybrid now until the 4-week benchmark, and then the superintendent does have the option of going in the opposite direction and going 5 days. So there is a chance to go one way or the other, Dr. Brown.
On the school-by-school budget?
On a school-by-school basis.
Yes.
Yes.
Anything else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? That'll be me. So it's 7-1. Here. All right. Individual board members. I have no request. I've heard no board member mention correspondence that they would like to talk about. And we don't have any reports from board liaison, or various committees. Other than superintendent, we have a superintendent's update. Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to be very brief. A couple of things, just want to wish everyone a happy new year. I think we've gotten off to an incredible start. I want to welcome our new board chair. Tonight's Dr. Bradley's first night as chair, so welcome to that role. First meeting as chair. You've actually been chair for about a month. And, we talk about a lot of things in dealing with the pandemic, and there are a lot of frontline heroes, but there are some unsung heroes too. And I just want to mention just 6 people. These 6 folks, well, I guess they took a couple hours off on Christmas Day, but generally they work through the weekends, they work through the holidays. They're receiving calls, they're receiving the quarantine forms, they're in contact with DHEC and other health officials constantly. So this is our COVID tracking team, and these are incredible people who work tirelessly every day of the week. Monica Mazzell, Denise Broom, Tyrell Braxton, Tracy McCormick, Bunny Sharp, and Tara Johnson. These folks are incredible, and they make sure that we have the information that we need. They make sure that our employees, our students, and their parents have the information that they need to make to keep all of us healthier and safer. So I just applaud them. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. We have nothing for an executive session this evening, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Great. Second by vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. That's it.